for the light. I love you.
Oh yeah, like lighting is important. They stuck me with like 4 or 5 people on that one. I was like, well, this is not powerful enough to do anything for that. But when it's just the two of you, like you should be well lit. Especially you. You're an iconic scream queen, so you have to pay respect to our legends of the genre.
Thank you, madam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, what was really interesting about this film, to see with the trailer that I just watched like 5 seconds ago, is that it's sort of combining the premise of kind of like the old school creature features, like the Blob, with the more modern horror, which is like your Ari Aster, like every horror monster is now just like your own trauma.
Yeah.
So, what was that like to do on set, like with the storytelling for you as an actor, and for you, like with visually bringing that to life?
I'll let her go first.
Well, it was delicious for me because I got to use absolutely every part of my technique, every part of me, every part of me that's disconnected. Shut up. So I just got to explore lots of places where we're not safe to allow ourselves to go to these days because we may not come back.
Yeah, I had directed 6 Sharknado movies. I wanted to do something with a little more depth. I again loved working on those films, but I wanted to see, can we do something that has a little more meaning to it? That talking about things that mean something to us as writers, us as filmmakers, and so it evolved from there. And the monster, there is a monster, but there's more to it than just being a monster movie. And can we have our cake and eat it too? Can we make a legitimate monster movie where people will go, okay, it's a horror movie, I liked it, and then, oh wow, this movie affected me. I think the biggest compliment I got is I showed it to 2 people. I showed it to a horror person that said I like it, and I showed it to someone that hates horror movies, and they called me afterwards and they go, I'm still thinking about this movie. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah. And that person proceeded to tell me a whole other narrative about the movie that wasn't there, about what it meant to them. Like, and I just saw this is this and this. I'm going, we did our job. And the anchor of all of it, too, is that there's an emotional connection, which sometimes it's lost in horror films for the spectacle. Like, at the end of the movie, it's actually strangely emotional despite all these characters going through horrible things and doing horrible things. And I showed it to her, and after it was over, she was,
I was astounded, really, at what you pulled off.
It's collective.
Very, very proud of this film. It works on so many different levels, and it's actually an intellectual, psychological horror film.
So I'm interested for you as a Scream Queen legend, like a Hall of Famer, you have to be getting a lot of offers for horror films because of who you are. So what now do you look for when deciding to put your very well-known name onto maybe a less-known horror project?
Well, I knew Anthony. I've done several projects with Anthony. Anthony can pull gold out of a tortoise's butt. He can. So I have huge trust in what he can do.
Thank you.
But the part has to make sense to me. And the part has to excite me. And I have to, from a heart place, understand who that woman is. And all that came together when I read Nick's. And then the script has to be good. So those are kind of my points that I go down, I trusted my director before I even read it. But also, if I didn't feel like I could bring her to life in a truthful, passionate way, I couldn't do it.
There's a thing with a role like this where you can go 2 ways. You can go surface level or you can go deeper. And Dee, writing it, I knew that she's the only person that could do this. And when I say that, it's because it's not a straight line movie. And
At all.
and there's one scene in the film with her and Michael Paré, and she's on the stairwell, and they have this whole conversation about so many different things. And every time I watch it, I mean, it's great acting from both sides on it, but it felt almost like, you know, a big intense thing you would see on a stage play. It hit all the beats, but there's nuance behind everything. It's not, like I said, a straight line. And I was just floored. And I think I called you once and said, this is just incredible.
You did after that scene.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, this thing is just
and
incredible.
The dinner table
and the
scene.
dinner table scene. And she is so good, and she's done so many great things. And I keep saying this over and over again. If there's any justice in the world, she should be nominated for this movie. After we did one scene in the birthday party scene, I'm like, this is a level of acting that, like, you don't get in horror films, and sometimes you don't get in bigger films. And she went to a place, a very, very dark place,
Yeah, it was
and to
dark.
make it not feel over the top or just there is one of the hardest things to do. And she deserves, for her
It
career,
has to be
she
her.
deserves the credit that she needs.
Thank
She has to get this, because if you watch everything she's done from Cujo, E.T. on, there's just so much stuff that she brings to it, which is why I love working with her and collaborating with her.
You want to be my publicist?
Yeah, sure. That's what I do. I hire you in all my movies. So.
Because you bring up a very interesting point about the snubbing of horror and acting in horror, because there's a lot more conversations now about how Toni Collette should have been nominated for Hereditary, about how Lupita Nyong'o should have been nominated for Jordan Peele's Us.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you think it is that is preventing, I guess, the hierarchy of Hollywood from bestowing
think
those accolades?
It's a real old holdover from the old days of Universal Pictures, all the mummy things. They were B pictures, and they were all horror pictures. And so horror pictures equal B pictures. And you're seeing that start to change now a little bit. Stephen King very kindly talks about, on his site, about how he thinks I should have been nominated for Cujo. But
You see it too with Marvel. I mean, Avengers, Endgame, and Infinity War. Those are dense, incredible movies. Yes, they're big superhero things, but the emotional things with the other movies, no disrespect to the movies were nominated for Best Picture, one or both should have been nominated. There should have been no delineation, because what movies are about is, does it elicit a response? Does it make you feel something? Does it make you feel weird or happy or whatever? And that's the earmark of a great movie. And all the movies nominated that year, yeah, they were great, but those two shouldn't have been discounted either. And there's many of those things that you say, and just same thing with performances. It should be what best thing wins. Best thing, like, even if it's a genre film, but those other films have the marketing, they have the studio support. And again, there is a thing of like, well, it's a horror movie, I don't like that, because there are a lot of people that will never watch those things. So even if it was the greatest movie and I told every single person in the Academy to watch, these movies, they're still going to go, yeah, but this is what the Academy is.
yeah, but I think Nick's is a big crossover
Yeah.
to that, because yes, it's a horror film, but it works on so many different levels. It can be just a psychological,
And it's not about the awards necessarily. I mean, we're not saying that, everybody should be not, but I'm saying that looking at these things and really digging into the deep dive of what is being done in the genre now. Hereditary is a perfect example. Midsummer, another example of there's just amazing stuff going on in these movies, and the people should see the residuals of it. And she, again, I'm saying, phenomenal job in this movie, and no makeup half the time in the movie, and that was her choice.
no makeup.
Wow.
Like-
Zero.
You're braver than me.
I look horrible. In this, half the time I'm in a dirty robe and a nightgown and slippers, because she's literally, when she lost her daughter years and years ago, she lost her will to live. And just getting up and getting dressed is a mountain to her.
So one quick final question, and if it's a spoiler, you don't have to answer. Can you explain the title, like what it means?
Well, Nix comes from there's a German folklore called Nix, which we don't take a lot from it, but it's a water fairy called a Nixie, sometimes called a Naken. and it's and the nix is this half face in water. Everything else about it is our own original thing, but I took inspiration behind that. And the idea is, what does this thing represent lurking in the water? What is this thing, and how does it affect what story we're going to tell? I think that's where the Nix title comes from. It's German folklore, and we touch a little bit upon the origins of it. So.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time.
We're letting our imagination get the best of us.
I had another nightmare.
Don't be afraid. It's nothing.
Actually, while I have you here, would you mind saying hello to Nick Says Boo? He's a YouTuber that I love. He's a huge horror fan, and
sure.
I know that like he's gonna absolutely die. Nick Says Boo.
Boo?
Yeah, like boo.
And
Like,
Okay.
she was in the movie that I directed called Boo.
Nick says boo!
And she's in a movie called Boo, my first movie I wrote and directed. So this is kind of symmetry.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.